Welcome back to our 1955 season in Grand Prix Legends here for round number 7, the German Grand Prix held, of course, at the massive Nordschleife circuit. We're here to do what's going to be a very long race today, and I'll get into it a bit in a second, but pretty excited for this one. I know a lot of folks are interested always in the Nordschleife and everything that goes on with that circuit, so taking these 55 cars around is going to be pretty interesting. The championship battle is heating up a bit, coming off of our last race at Aintree for the British Grand Prix. We didn't do as well in that one as I think I was hoping. A couple mistakes in there, and of course that incident towards the end of the race with one of the lapped cars. I don't think we'll have to worry as much today about lapped cars, but you never know. Some of the cars are fairly slow out there. But of course here at the Nürburgring, the 174 turn, 14 mile circuit in all its glory for round 7. So let's take a quick look at the schedule thus far. Round 7, the German Grand Prix, of course, being one of the ones, just like the French Grand Prix earlier on in the season, that was canceled after the Le Mans disaster. So we're kind of recreating history, as if scenario, as if the 1955 F1 season proceeded with no changes, and same will be true for the next round at Bremgarten. But getting close to the end of the season, there's just 4 races left to go, and if we take a look at the points, Juan Manuel Fangio's got a pretty solid lead with 38 points to Richard Axelsen, myself 27 points. So being the way the points work now, of course, the lowest scored races are going to be dropping for the rest of the season. You can see this by the grayed out portions on the points. So Juan Manuel Fangio right now is dropping a 4-point finish, whereas we finally got rid of our Monaco finish with the last round. So I'll have to do better than 2 points in this race to better my overall point total, and I guess Juan Manuel Fangio would just need to not score points or score 2 points to even make an impact to his, but we'll have to see how this all turns out. I'm not sure if at this point Fangio is just not somebody we can catch, but I think this battle for second place is still very much alive with Alberto Ascari and Jose Gonzalez just 8 points behind us. It's not going to take a lot for that to tighten up a bit. So let's come and take a look here at the track. Of course, I think everybody knows the German Grand Prix or the Nordschleife circuit, an immense track, and we'll talk about it as we go around the circuit. This race in the 50s was an interesting one. So I believe in the 54 season, they decided to lengthen the length of the race to make it more in line with the other Grand Prix of the time, which was, I think, a 500-kilometer distance. So they took what was 18 laps, I think, in the early 50s around the circuit and made that 22 laps, which is insane. By the time F1 was leaving the Nordschleife, I believe those races were around 14 or 15 laps in the 60s and 70s. So they were doing more laps and slower cars back then. So this is going to turn out for us. Of course, we're racing, slightly shorter races, but it's going to be a 7-lap race. And if you've never seen the Nordschleife, maybe that doesn't make sense. 7 laps doesn't sound like a lot, but our lap times are over 9 minutes in these cars to get around the circuit. So it's going to be quite a long race, probably the longest race I've ever done on this channel. And endurance is definitely going to be something that we've got to keep in mind, especially on those early laps, and make sure we don't make any mistakes that would hound us for the rest of the Grand Prix. I don't want to fight a bent suspension for 3 or 4 laps throughout the race. But race was run to 22 laps. I think it was the longest F1 race of all time until pretty recently when there was some kind of rain delayed thing. But in theory, the longest F1 race ever. They did the same distance when the race came back in 1956. And so 22 laps, that'll turn into 7 laps for us today. We'll take a look at the starting grid. So qualifying, I think, went pretty well, but there's a large speed difference, specifically with those Mercedes. So Sterling Moss on the pole with a 9-minute 18-second lap, and Alberto Ascari right behind him, just a second off with a 9-minute 19-second lap. If you think of how long the Nordschleife is, 1 second is very close, and it's not even a second. So they're very much in the fight for each other. We got Castellati making out that front row, but a whole 10 seconds essentially behind the pole sitter. So there's a decent gap there. But something you might notice is that Fangio is not on the front of the grid. Not sure what happened to him in qualifying. I've not altered or changed anything about the strength of the drivers, but he qualified down in 10th position, and so maybe just not some good laps, that were put in by him. But we can see the second row. We got Kling in the streamlined Mercedes starting right next to us, Richard Axelsen in the 5th starting spot. I got a 9-minute 35-second lap. I think I'm good for a 9.5 minute lap if things go right, but I don't know if we're going to have any chance to catch Moss and Ascari. Castellati might be, depending on his race pace, somebody we can catch, and then of course there's always the hope for mechanical failures. But pretty good grid here for the start of the race. Take a quick dive into the car setup. Running almost exactly the same stuff. I think this is more about feeling the car than really trying to dial things in with a setup. But of course, running 30 gallons, maybe a bit more fuel than we need, but want to play it safe. Don't want to get to the end of this one and run out of things. So we've got our car all set up. We've got the grid set up. I think if there was a race where we might gain some on Fangio, it would be this one. So why don't we get started with the 1955 German Grand Prix. So here we are on the grid, just one row of cars in front of us, so hopefully can get a good run down to the first corner. Flag is up, down, we're underway. Good run off the line here, bogging down a bit in second gear. On Kling, the streamlined Mercedes coming up our outside, but to get the run back on him as we'll now come into T1. Such a hard braking zone on the first lap. Cold tires, cold brakes, but up the outside, and we'll actually get alongside Ascari here. Make sure we don't run too wide. Ascari might have us. Green flag being shown from a marshal, so maybe something happened behind us. So making the pass, or making it past Kling, but he's looking at our inside as we'll now head towards the left-hander here and onto the Nürburgring. The Nordschleife proper is Klinged all over our rear end. Second gear here then for the entrance. Try to get as good of a run as we can through now these slower bits of corners. We'll see if we can pull out here from Kling. Second gear then, cut the course a little bit there, but trying to use as much of the circuit as we can to help turn the car. Barreling around, first gear then, maybe taking a little too much advantage of the grass there, but up through second, and then this final slower right-hander before we will straighten out, head down the hill towards the Flugplatz. So running up 4th, 5th gear. That streamlined Mercedes is obviously going to be quick in a straight line. Over the top of the hill, get a little air there, but then down to 4th. And the car trying to break free for me a little bit over the top of the hill, but then flatten out, and now the run towards Arenberg. One of the fastest sections of the circuit here, but by no means a straightaway. Very, very frightening. 4th gear here, this left-hander, try to keep it nice and tidy on the inside, sliding a little wide. And second gear here through Arenberg. Under the bridge, and down another fast hill. And this one, to be very cautious at the bottom of the hill that we don't bottom out and spin the car out, especially on the early laps with heavier fuel. So we'll breathe the throttle a little bit. The two Lancias in front doing the same thing. 4th gear then, and all the way down to 1st through Ardenauer. Second still, now 1st. over-rev the car on exit. I've already hit the top of the rev range at least once. I can see the red needle there. And something didn't bring up in the intro, but I've been talking about all season is the brakes, of course. So this track, especially hard on brakes in some sections. There are some straight areas where we can cool them off again, but especially this section here coming down the hill, very difficult as Kling is right on me here. We're in the green range right now, but as the race progresses, it gets very difficult to keep them cool. The gauge on the tack obviously being kind of a compromise since we can't smell or feel the brakes through the pedal. Green means I've got full braking power, yellow means it's compromised, and red I've pretty much got no brake. So we have to use the engine as much as we can here, probably shifting more than you would just for flat out speed, just to help control the car and how quick it's going. Find a downshift quite a bit earlier than you might need to in other cars. Making our way up the hill, finally getting a little breathing room there off of Kling. And staying pretty much with the two Lancias here. I wonder if Castellotti's holding up Ascari a bit. It seems like Sterling Moss is on another planet. He's just completely out of the picture already in that Mercedes. And be hopefully not seeing Fangio coming up behind us anytime soon. Now head through a really fast section of the circuit here. Fourth gear pretty much all the way, I think. This corner, breathe the gas a little bit, make sure we get a good line through there. We'll come to the top of the hill here in this very quick right left-hander. Again, keeping it nice and tidy, a little cautious here. We've got to run the full Grand Prix, so we cannot treat this like it's a qualifying lap. Third gear then. Fourth again, and then back down to third over the top of the hill. Just one corner here as we're right on Ascari now. Around this corner and we'll head towards the carousel for the first time. As Ascari very slow, see if we can take advantage, but just no way to get around there. Coming into the carousel, we'll back up a little bit. Take it nice and easy as we drop in and then use the crazy banking angle to keep the car a little quicker than you could run through there otherwise. Now to a very fast-flowing part of the circuit. Very pleasurable to drive in these cars. A lot heavier than the 60s F1 cars, but have a flow all their own for sure. Oof, almost dipping onto the grass there. This section, really just have to watch out for running wide. There's not going to be any grip if you touch the grass on the outside of any of these corners. Up and over the top of the hill, and back down. Getting a little unsettled there, but able to keep control of it. So now we're right on Ascari here. He's definitely being held up by Castellotti, who had a comparable qualification time to us. Now through a couple challenging corners here, this left-hander, just have to make sure you give it enough brake. It's easy to run wide there. And then probably the hardest corner on the circuit in my eyes, this blind left-hander. You just have to know where it is. Easy to run wide there, clip that fence post. Thinking about diving up the inside there, but very early in the race here, don't want to take any unnecessary moves. Car getting light there. I love how the car kind of gets light from the rear end over that hump. Alright, straightening out these corners as much as we can. Down to third gear over another little bridge. Grabbing the inside there quite a bit. A second gear up the hill, pretty tight corner. So now we'll straighten out and head towards the second carousel, the smaller carousel. Taking in second gear. Try to get close to the grass there without touching it. Shoot us out, and now just a couple corners here that slower on the first one on the entry, but try to maximize the exit of the second right-hander here for the long back straightaway, and we're right on Ascari. We'll see, we'll be able to draft him here. Oh, running a little wide. See if we can jump in the slipstream though. Down the long straightaway, a second to really rest, honestly, after the pretty hectic first lap. But it seems like I can't see Kling behind me. He's probably in the slipstream, but a little further back. He's in that slipstreamed Mercedes, so he's definitely going to be quick in the straight sections. We'll come over the hill here, almost flat out pretty much in these cars. Just a little dip off the gas, running wide there. And into the final corner, slow it down quite a bit. Just gonna see if we could maybe throw it up the inside of Ascari here, but not possible. The chicane, of course, not actually here in the 55 season. Added much later, I think 66, but we have it here in GPL. We'll cross the line for lap 1, so still pretty close here with second and third. I think we're in 4th position. Moss is just on another planet up ahead. Break into T1, Kling pulling back up on us. Ascari thinking about passing Castellati here. If they fight, that'll help open up potentially a way for me to get by as well. We'll come check the pit board here. Pit board after the start finish line, P4, 6 laps to go, of course. Exactly where we thought we were. The pit board will show the current lap status on this circuit. This Kling up the inside. Caught me sleeping a little bit. Taking advantage then as we dive down in the brakes in the red zone. Also getting past me when I didn't even think he was as close as he was, I guess. Fighting back through here with no brakes pretty much. We have to back up our braking zones quite a bit. Get it down into first gear here for the last couple of S's. Do like that section of the circuit a lot, but probably a little more in the 60s cars. These very heavy beasts don't really like going around tight corners. Why a track like Monaco is so difficult. We'll head towards the Flugplatz here for the second time. Just nice straight line over the top. Let the car get in the air again. Try not to over rev down to 4th gear and slide it through the double right-hander here, flat out for the run to Arenberg. Just got passed by Kling, so we'll be in 5th position, which is not where I want to be, potentially maximizing on Fangio today. Sliding through into Arenberg, 2nd gear. Ascari and Castellati still dueling with each other there. The hill, still have to be really easy on the throttle here. Wow, Kling backing out of it quite a bit. Almost catching him there. That Ardenauer section feels really good to get correct all the way down to 1st gear and hit those apexes and everything. I mentioned this in an Isle of Man race that should be coming out soon on the channel that I did, but I love the Nürburgring for the sense of going somewhere. It really does feel like you're actually driving somewhere, where a circuit like a Monaco or even the modern Grand Prix tracks, or any of the modern Grand Prix tracks, you're just kind of going in circles nonetheless. This feels like I'm actually, driving through a few different towns and all around the country to get somewhere, which is very exciting. Down to first gear here, very hard on the brakes, but one of the toughest corners to slow the car down for. Just save the brakes as much as I can for that. So Kling is caught up here to the two Lancias, who Castellotti's still holding up his teammate. Might actually cost them a podium here because of Kling. And hopefully myself. So come up over the top of the hill. Didn't take the line there perfectly, but anytime you make it through, it is successful. Second gear then for this fast right-hander, running a little wide, tapping the fence there. Hopefully the car unhurt, making an unforced error there early on. Definitely not what I need to be doing. Seems like we might have got away with it. We'll know for sure when we turn to the right up here. Kind of scary taking the car almost flat out after tapping something. But it does feel fine. So very, very lucky to get away with that one. Down into third gear here for this fast left-right-hander. Back in on these guys. Obviously lost a little bit of time there, but I feel like this section of the circuit much quicker on than the other cars. They maybe have the advantage through the start of the lap. Definitely something that would happen in real life. Different drivers would be better, faster through different parts of the circuit. Different cars handled differently through different parts of the circuit. Into the carousel for the second time. Ooh, make sure we don't run wide there. The hill and into second again, making sure we use that engine as much as we can here, especially in these downhill sections. Need to save the brakes for when we absolutely need them. Down from fourth to second. Leave it in second here. Save ourselves a couple of gear shifts at least. So just keep it nice and tidy. Tidy is the word I'm probably using too much, but it's how I need to think mentally to drive a Grand Prix like this. You just cannot, like I did back there earlier in the lap, cannot let the car run wide at all. Brake too late. It's just so easy to end the Grand Prix here. Back in, so I'm feeling pretty optimistic about our speed. Even though Kling got past us, I think ultimately could drive faster without the two Lancias in front of us. Not sure about the speed of Ascari really, being stuck behind his teammate, and I know he qualified not too far off of Moss, so he's probably very, very quick. Up the hill here towards the second carousel, and these two fighting, able to throw it outside of Kling, but not going to work there. Just has the better line on me. getting all kinds of sideways through the second carousel, but not spinning out somehow. All right, and now onto the straightaway for the second lap. Already feeling it quite a bit. This is such a hard Grand Prix compared to all of the others, really. I think Monaco comes to mind as another really challenging one, but even something like Spa, which is obviously a tricky track, very fast, but this just requires a different level of precision racing around the Nürburgring. Not pulling in at all really here down the straightaway. Took this fast left-hander, hopefully a little less eventful than last time through. Dipping off the throttle quite a bit, but really nothing to be gained by overdoing it there. Into second for the final chicane. Trying to be easier on the brakes. The gauge shows you green, yellow, red, like I said, but it is actually quite linear, so throughout the green and yellow periods, the brakes do vary quite a bit. And then when you get in the red, there is still a little bit of brake for the first, tiny bit that you're in the red zone, but from there it dips off quite drastically. And I saw Moss there streaking by on the left side, so he's still running, but so far ahead of us. Taking it conservative into the Mickey Mouse part of the circuit here. Starting our third lap. You can see a few of the other cars there behind us streaking towards T1. So P5 lost a position on that lap with 5 laps to go. You can see a little dust kicked up ahead. I can't believe Ascari hasn't been able to get around his teammate yet. Down, feels like almost slow motion on some corners. If you're used to driving the 60s cars around here, they are so much slower. Looking at the lap times, we did about a 9.5 minute lap. Pretty easy in the 67s to do, close to 8-minute laps, some even going sub 8. So much slower in these cars, but it's these slow corners that really show how technology improved throughout this time. The straight line speed actually pretty comparable, and so when we go to somewhere like Monza, the lap time difference I expect would be much less, although still apparent. Car fishtailing around, getting it lined up then for the run to Flugplatz. So definitely losing time through the first sector, really. But as long as I can gain it elsewhere, I think overall I may be quicker, especially from Castellati. Kling getting by us, Ascari getting by us. Ascari was always by us, but if he doesn't get by his teammate, hopefully we can try to sneak by the whole lot somewhere. Just to try to stay in touch with them and capitalize when I am a bit quicker. Zones nicely. And this is, of course, the full Nordschleife circuit that came with Grand Prix Legends originally, and obviously has had a lot of work done. Continually, in every couple of years, somebody will put out some updates for the circuit to try to add a few more objects here and there, increase the graphics, and it's really transformed. You would never recognize the surroundings from the original circuit that released with Grand Prix Legends. I'd love to see the whole circuit done in very high resolution textures, maybe something to add to the to-do list. Second gear here, and we'll head to the downhill section. This is one of the scariest parts of the circuit I mentioned for these older cars, I think. Just so difficult to get the lines right through here. touch a little bit with the cars in front. Losing the brakes entirely at the bottom of the hill, but that's the last corner we really need them for. Kling taking a look up the inside of one of the Lancias. Sunny day here at the Nürburgring, in the shade a little bit here. That, of course, would play a big impact on the circuit. I know there's lots of notes, a great video of Jackie Stewart being led around the track in the 60s and just talking about how the different pavements and different parts of the circuit hold water differently, and so you can be on an entirely dry track in the sun and come around a corner and the track is wet. Amazing, something they didn't check for prior to the Grand Prix starting. It was just kind of left up to the drivers to figure out. So working up the hill here. Dipping through this fast chicane. Pulling up, I can tell I'm pulling in on the cars in front. This is definitely my fast section. Nowhere near close enough this lap. I think overall losing quite a bit of time. Down in a second gear here now. We'll settle it up and head up towards the carousel. Down in first gear just to make sure we don't pop out the top of the carousel. Through the slower corners there, that Mercedes is quite a bit heavier with all the streamlining on it, but it is actually a car they ran at this circuit. I know that wasn't true for every track we've been to. Mercedes did run, I believe, Kling himself in the Mercedes in 1954. See in my mirror what I was trying to, or hoping wouldn't happen, but potentially another silver car catching up to us here, as I think Fangio has made his way from 10th place on the grid. Just taking it easy here, but if he's caught us from that far back, then obviously he's going to be quite a bit quicker, and we'll have to do everything we can to keep him there. Yeah, it's definitely him. Just when I thought we might have a race where we could catch up to him a little bit. Definitely a huge advantage in that Mercedes they have. It's just such a great car. Really a shame, too, that Mercedes left the sport, after this season. Didn't come back. We obviously see today how great Mercedes is, but they made some amazing machines, and would have been interesting to see what they could have made in the 60s and 70s. So now we're kind of right back in the mix with these guys after falling quite a bit back on the lap. Keep it clean here through these last two right-handers, through the cup. Lots of oversteer, not taking the best line through there. Take a sip of water. The longer Prix like this, I have to make sure I can talk for the whole thing. And over the top of the hill, definitely not something that the real drivers would have had access to. Just the straight line speed, surprised, but not quite there. I know the Lancias were very quick, so we'll take it over the top here. And easy to get that apex a little too early and really cause yourself some scares there on the exit. Trying to limit the use of the brakes. So I want to make sure things are settled, and there he is, Fangio behind us. Wow, he pulled in so quickly. Going to complete, I think, the third lap there. Into T1. Fangio looking at the inside. Side by side with him here. Got the better line through this corner. Paul falls in behind us. I just don't think there's going to be any way for us to keep him behind us, though. Trying to take a look at the pit board. 4 laps to go. P5. So Fangio's going to put us in the last points playing position here if he gets by. It just seems like that's something that is going to happen here. Despite my best efforts, I'm driving pretty much as quickly as I can within, reason. Oh, there goes Fangio up the inside, then try not to spin out on the dirt. See if we can maybe follow him through and recoup a couple of these positions. I do think I've got something on the little pack of cars here in front. Insane how quick he is. And just, with Moss pulling away so quick, I knew it was just a matter of time. I'll race it down towards Flugplatz again. Getting awfully quiet around me here. You never know when you race the Nürburgring if you're going to have a close battle with other cars for the whole race, or you're just going to be hot lapping by yourself. And I was hoping for YouTube. It seems like the case so far. We're at least around some other cars, but you never know. And personally, I don't mind if I'm just hot lapping, but I guess that's how these races were back in the day. It's not going to be an action-packed race every single time, and I think what we've gotten so far is decent, but I do wish I was a little bit quicker here. Ferrari's definitely not the best car on the circuit, although they did finish second in the real Grand Prix. Trying to not screw things up here coming up the hill. So Fangio sticking behind his teammate. Be surprised if he doesn't let him by here quickly. I think Fangio should be able to just get by pretty quickly here. Down the hill, just a hedge to our left side. Very easy to throw the car into that, and it's not a wall, it's actually a soft hedge, so you'll sink into it. I guess perhaps better than a wall back in these times, something to have a chance of stopping you, but also very flammable. So I've totally lost lost sight of this group in front this time. Just battling with the brakes here. They're definitely a big issue around this circuit. This circuit won't be too dissimilar from Bremgarten, which I'm excited to go to. It's another track I haven't really raced around very much, but almost like the Swiss version of the Nordschleife, and the track obviously lost to time with the Swiss stopping motor racing in '55, but one of those circuits that everybody reveres as one of the greats from back in the day. So like this type of circuit, then that one should definitely be interesting. Through 4 through this fast chicane. Just try to put together clean laps, see what shakes out in front of us, but I don't know, Fangio getting there made everybody pick up their pace a bit. I guess I wasn't as much of a threat as he was. Still in the lead, Ferrari at least. I guess I can own that title. No Constructors' Championship in '55 as we get into the carousel here. A little bit of a scary entry that time. Constructors' Championship didn't start, I think, until 60. So we can actually see the cars again ahead. So Fangio's still behind Kling somehow. I imagine on the end of the lap he'll pass him. No need to pass him too eagerly. He's got, you know, 4th, 5th, or 4th, 3rd, and 2nd all in front of him, and Moss is so far ahead that playing it pretty smart, actually, just waiting for a very good opportunity to pass, knowing he'll be able to get by all of those cars. Oh, and he was looking there. I just caught a glimpse as we rounded the corner. Just making sure we don't fly out wide over this bit of the circuit. Such a corkscrew type corner there. Through the YouTube corner now. I believe this is the current corner dubbed YouTube turn. This frightening blind left-hander. And in the real Grand Prix, I know in '54 only something like 10 of the 20 or so starters finished, so a lot of mechanical failure and things. I think there was actually a crash and a death in the practice sessions. Not sure what we'll get for mechanical, but I guess that's always something that could happen here too. Gain us a couple more points. Hopefully no crashes, but mechanicals. Try to just drive our car more conservatively, reliably, since we might not have the pace here to actually pass the cars in front. Last lap we were pretty much on them through this part of the circuit, and they are still visible, but just visible. Straightaway then, and relax for just a moment. Hop over the hill. I love this version of the straightaway. They really flattened it out in recent times, but there's some great video of cars with really high focal ranges, cars, you know, going up and down through the bumps. Take a conservative left here. Some watching might be pissed that I'm gonna back up a little bit, but finishing is really the key thing here. And I think pace-wise, I can only push so much before a mistake will happen. We already got away with one early on in the Grand Prix. That does not happen very often at the Nordschleife. I'm not going to back off completely, but want to take a little more conservative lines here as we have a few laps to go. A few laps around the Nordschleife is quite a bit, anybody would tell you. So Fangio was able to get by Kling then. It's only a matter of time, and he'll set his sights on the Lancias in front and try to make that Mercedes 1-2. So 3 laps to go for P6. Some points in this, but I was really hoping that Fangio wouldn't be able to get up to us throughout the Grand Prix, and I could, finish in that top 3. I think a win here unachievable in the Ferrari, but unless there's some serious mechanical failures, but not the best Grand Prix results-wise so far. This won't really better our point situation. Our lowest points race right now is the 6th place with 2 points, so the other option would be to try to set, fastest lap, which is not going to happen, unfortunately, in the Ferrari. Not by me. The front, 4 cars still really stacked up there, but somehow making great speed through the starting parts of the circuit, and I think I saw Fangio side by side with one of the Lancias there. Second gear then for Arenberg. Fangio not able to get past the 2 Lancias just yet. Out from under me a little bit. Down into first gear already with the red brakes at the top of the hill. Just so hard here with the brake fade. Really adds a whole other element, and I think, racing some other sims recently too. It's the little things, and not every mod in Grand Prix Legends has the brake fade. It would be pretty interesting to add in a more limited capacity to some of the 60s cars, but it definitely changes your strategy or how you drive the circuit. I wonder too, I'm not actually familiar if some of the other cars are better with the brakes. The Ferrari here seems to be pretty terrible with them. It seems like one of those things that modern sim should be able to do. I know iRacing simulates colder brakes. I don't think brakes really overheat as much these days, though. too much of the grass there on the inside. You really have to work the wooden steering wheel here to keep the car pointed in the right direction. Not seeing anybody behind us, so it's really just focusing on doing the best job we can at keeping clean laps, getting to the finish line, and just kind of seeing what plays out in front of us. See if we can become a factor. I really feel like if Ascari was able to get around Castellati might lose some of his drive to go really fast, and we maybe have a shot at him. Interesting things about the Assetto Corsa of the 67 track is you can drive some of the other layouts. The Nürburgring featured quite a few different layouts, especially back in the 60s, 50s and 60s. So try to break it hard there for the carousel. And one of them, back the corner before the carousel, I'll point it out maybe next time by, but the track kind of goes up a hill to the left there. So it cuts through, and you can kind of, I think it cuts up to right up here at the top of the hill, so you can cut off the whole carousel section, which for some cars might actually be better. I think meets the track again right there. Especially in a modern car with low ride heights, the carousel just does not work. These 50s cars, though, definitely a quicker line to go through there. Here, ever modulating the throttle back and forth. A little bit of a bounce over that berm. I think that was removed in the 70s, smoothed out. A lot of the track was smoothed out through the 70s to try to keep the Grand Prix here, but in the end, it did move away from the circuit after Niki Lauda's crash. So Wolf running a little wide, dangerously close to that post there. That will get you, that one. Second gear, then over this crest towards the second carousel. A little high that time through there. It's just dancing with that barrier on the outside as you try to come onto the straightaway here. So never quite losing sight here of the cars in front, but feeling fairly useless as it seems like Fangio is still trying to work on the Lancias. It'd be very interesting if he's not able to break the top three. There is a way, if you defend just right at the Nordschleife, you could, in theory, keep somebody behind you, even if you're pretty slow compared. Definitely did not show off those moves today. Into the chicane here, and I actually like the version of this track with the chicane. I think the straightaway makes turn one very frightening. There is a version of the track, I believe for the original R Factor that has the straightaway preserved there, and it's quite challenging for sure. So brake just ahead of that white marker on the right. You have to really figure out braking marks and things. This corner, oof, is the car fishtailing on me a little bit. Easy to screw up the first turn after doing an outlap, and that's one of the, I don't think I mentioned during qualifying, one of the frustrating things about the Nürburgring in Grand Prix Legends specifically is you have to do a full outlap before you can actually start a timed lap. So 2 laps to go, P6, Musso's behind us, I believe in the Maserati, but very far behind, so I don't think we have to worry about him too much. But you do have to do that full outlap in qualifying. So in real life, they actually would have dipped off to the circuit right there to the right before we got into this turn, and you could go around that little, I guess, Grand Prix section of the circuit for a few laps, get the tires up to temperature, and then hit that hard and do a full lap. But in the sim, we have to go around the whole circuit, so it makes, any qualifying attempt, in this car, literally a 20-minute ordeal to get around 2 laps, at least. Maybe why Fangio didn't do such a good job in qualifying. Feeling very slow this time through the S's. Now really not pushing that hard anymore. If it's not apparent, it's just not going to be, it's not worth the risk of not finishing at all to try to maybe pass Kling or something, unless he slows down quite a bit or I just happen to put together a few corners. It's more or less here just riding this one out. See those silver and red dots ahead of us. Take it very easy there. Corner always frightens me because it seems somewhat random that you can hit it wrong and the car bottoms out and you go spinning really out of control without any warning. Second gear then, try to save those brakes as much as we can. Very good line through this corner. A series of corners, really. Down to first gear, no brakes for the left-hander. Down the bottom of the hill, I know a little bit of a village here. Be an interesting place to live for sure. Second gear then, still pretty much my only major mistake of the race was that runoff there in really the first or second lap. Definitely driving more conservatively here though. left side, don't want to be doing that. Fly through the chicane there. Down into third gear for this left-hander. Quite a bit of camber in the track there, helps push the car. If you can see that, I can definitely feel it through the wheel. Slowing it down here. These slower speed corners just feel like where I'm probably losing all that time. Ferrari just doesn't want to grip through there. We're clearly quicker than quite a few cars, being in, you know, 6th place, but I don't think the Ferrari has anything for the Mercedes or Lancias here. We'll check in again though at something like Monza, because we should do pretty well there with the high horsepower that the Ferrari has. And just touching that dirt to the outside. Maybe a little too early right now. Just trying to keep the car nice and steady here. Definitely this type of driving where you're, you know, not pushing too hard is probably pretty foreign for folks that are used to modern motor racing, but back in these days, especially with the mechanical reliability of the cars, there's just no way you would push so flat out the whole race. You would definitely get to, I don't want to say coast type mode, but pretty conservative, still driving to, you know, maybe 95% of the car, but you can't abuse your equipment, abuse the circuit. There's just, you know, there's trees on each side of the circuit here. The stakes are definitely high if something goes wrong. This corner, very frightening left-hander there. Back end's gonna lift off the ground there. Totally different type of jump than the fluke plots with that one. See a faint sight of Mercedes chasing a Lancia, so I'm wondering if Fangio actually ended up getting around Ascari potentially. Which may actually end up helping me if Fangio takes some points away, less chance for Ascari to catch me. The best way would be to beat him myself. Alright, back on the straightaway then. I'm definitely feeling the Grand Prix. It's one challenging circuit in these cars, managing the brakes. And these lumbering cars back and forth down around the tight corners. Top of the hill, no need for heroics. Back out just a little bit. Put my foot back in it. Down to 4th gear here, 3rd and 2nd. Give it a little bit of heel and toe there when we get into 2nd specifically. Make sure the car doesn't want to loop around on us. Cross the line and I believe start the last lap of the Grand Prix. 7 laps here is no joke. I don't care what anybody says. Doing a full Grand Prix would be quite a lot, especially in these cars. 22 laps, it would be murderous. To go. Cling in front of us. Nordschleife proper here. Third gear, no brakes at all. To use the side force of the car to keep it slowed down, to slow down extra early here for the tight parts of the circuit here. Oh, and understeering quite a bit. The Flugplatz. Car gets very light on that little rise right before it as well. I think in a more modern car you can actually get quite a bit of wheel spin there. Up through fifth gear. In real life, if a mechanical failure or something occurred on that part of the circuit, that's where the big accidents happen. No types of barriers or things to keep you in. I don't think a wooden fence is going to do too much. And easy through the dip, down to fourth gear for the first corner, third, second, slow the car down quite a bit for Ardenauer first here, first gear. Hill now. Trying to get that car on the correct line. The line, I mentioned this earlier, but it really can change so much about how you take the corner and the speed at which you can take it. More so than in a modern car with downforce. If you get the line wrong, it can mean the difference between 25 miles an hour or something in a turn, which is huge. Oh, I'm getting a little squirrely here. No brakes at all. Short shifting a little bit to avoid wheel spin out of the really slow corners. I think a valid strategy, especially late in a Grand Prix, is no brakes, and that almost felt like I was going to go over the edge of the circuit there. It would be so defeating on the final lap to make a mistake. I'm sure it's happened many times, and I can't imagine in a full 22 lap race on lap 20 or something doing something silly and throwing it all away. Races back in these days were for just as much as testing the automobiles as it was a competition. So to finish first, you first must finish. We're not going to finish first today, but we're definitely going to finish. Chicane here. Natural chicane, that one. And the third gear, take that corner. Looks a little faster, like you can take it fast there. Shifting down, second gear, just let my lumbering Ferrari make it through the slower corners. Handle that wheel spin. The throttle and wheel. Down into first gear for the carousel. Just as he popped out of it, up into second, third and fourth. Second gear there, grabbing that towards the top of the hill to help, again, just help turn the car a bit. More torque. You can use the engine to help turn, help slow down. YouTube corner again. Forgetting the real name for that turn actually, but I think that's what everybody knows it by these days. Second gear then. Nice entry. Ooh, just touching that grass. I mentioned you can easily go wide there and here. This is one of the scary ones. I thought I might have saw two Mercedes ahead, two white cars in a row, or silver cars there. So it'd be interesting if the Lancias got back around Fangio, because he had definitely passed one of them. Have to take a good look at the results after this one. Down into third gear here, over the bridge. Bumps in the circuit, ridges and things. Keep the car dancing for us. Second gear then for the second carousel. Straighten it out here for the back straightaway. Ourselves gear up just for the final set of corners here. You can see the string of cars ahead, and I think definitely that the two Mercedes are in a row now. Very interesting. Throttle here, get the car settled, make sure I hit a late apex on that corner is the key. Down to second gear here for the chicane. You can brake a little bit after that first turn in. Coming to the line, you can just see the checkered flag waving, and for me, honestly, that kind of race, it's almost not a win. It's definitely not a win. I wish we could have fought more with that pack of cars ahead, but just feeling good about finishing that one, making minimal errors. Hopefully interesting enough to watch. I know not the best race of the season by far, but I just don't think the speed of the Ferrari around this type of circuit is going to be enough. So do what we can. I think we finished in the lead of all the Ferraris that were racing. So we'll give a wave here to the flagman. You can see Gonzalez just entering the first turn there, so he might have finished behind us. Take a look at our pit board here. P6 Kling in front of us still, 8 seconds. I think I kept that gap pretty much for the last few laps there, so nothing too much lost, but just not able to really keep up with them or push enough. They had too much speed through the slower sections of the circuit. We'll just pull over here and take a look at the results. All right, so we'll pause this real quick. and take a look. We'll actually need to accelerate to finish everything up. So, Stirling Moss wins the race from Castellati, finishing second in the Lancia. Wow. So, really good race for Castellati, especially because of, he really wasn't the quickest car, probably the closest to us in qualifying pace anyway. Fangio finishing in third place in the Mercedes, so he was able to get around Clang, Ascari, and not Castellati. And if you look at how close the finishing was, I guess Castellati ended up pulling out about a half a second ahead, but all of us were over a minute behind Stirling Moss, so he just really was in his own today. Clang finishing in fifth, and myself, Axelson, finishing in sixth. Looks like the cars behind were fighting all very closely, about 3.5 minutes behind. No mechanical failures. I'm gonna have to check out what the old settings are set to for that. There should at least be a couple. So adding that into the points now, Fangio keeping his lead, effectively dropping the round 3 of the season, or round 2 rather. So he's up to a fifth, 5 points being his lowest scoring. He got the extra point in this Grand Prix because of the quickest lap, so he's able to hold his score at 38, effectively kind of a null race for him, and I guess what he would consider a bad finish, but not too bad. And I don't know what I was thinking during the Grand Prix, but only the top 5 positions are getting points altogether, so I actually score nothing in the 6th position, so equaling my worst result, I believe, of 6th at the second round of the season. And actually finishing 9th, so another non-scoring round. Just going to hold my score where it is, with my lowest scoring race being 2 points. I think the next 2 Grand Prix are going to be very telling. I have to score better than 2 points, really, to better my score at all for the rest of the season, or else I'll be kind of locked in to where we're at right now. So we'll see how things go. Stirling Moss gained some points, obviously, with that win. With 8 points, he didn't capitalize with best lap somehow. Fangio still got that, probably when he was catching me. So Moss is right behind us, and we're kind of splitting these 2 Mercedes now, with just 3 rounds remaining. So we're going to be off next to the Swiss Grand Prix, again at Bremgarten. Really cool track, one that I've got to do some practice on because I don't know it so well yet, but I know it's kind of like the Nürburgring of Switzerland to some extent. And so I hope you enjoyed this. Not the most exciting Grand Prix, I think, but a really tough one, and hopefully that comes through a little bit, just the mental, making sure I don't overdo it at any point throughout the race there. But we'll catch you all again in Switzerland.